Good morning, and today is Tuesday, the 15th day of Sivan, and today we're going to finish chapter 4 in Shaar, Yichud, vEmuna, the gate of unity and faith. This is the second part of Tanya, and this last part of chapter 4, it actually begins with a brackets. It is like a parenthetical note that the Alter Rebbe inserted here in this part of the Tanya, which is very unusual. What is more unusual is that you don't see an end to this parenthetical note in original Tanya. And the Rebbe talked about it, and the Rebbe explained that the end of this note is at the end of chapter 5. So the last part of chapter 4, all the way till the end of chapter 5, is a parenthetical note, and the Alter Rebbe here comes to clarify matters that require clarification after explaining what we explained in the last 3 chapters and the 4th chapter until now. So briefly, what are we talking about? Alter Rebbe speaks about the oneness of Hashem. Shaar, Yichud, Hashem is one. The oneness of Hashem is that everything is Hashem. Hashem is indivisible. It's is something beyond division. And he explained how nothing else exists outside of Hashem. Everything what exists is only because Hashem constantly creates it. And he asked the question, if Hashem needs to be everywhere to create us, for anything to exist, Hashem needs to constantly be there, then how come we feel ourselves self-existing? How could we feel ourselves self-existing if, using the metaphor of the sun, the light of the sun does not have its own self-identity while it is still in the sun. Only when it comes out of the sun, it has its self-identity. But so when we're talking about the creation, the world and the universe, everything that Hashem created, if we're saying that Hashem needs to be there in us constantly, then we are basically like the light of the sun in the sun. Then we shouldn't feel ourselves self-existing. So for that, Alter Rebbe came and explained in this chapter, chapter 4, he explained that there are the two equal powers of Hashem, the forces of Hashem, the attributes of kindness and the attribute of restriction. And the kindness is about, we said, about the giving, the creating, endless creation. And the restriction is restricting of the light, condensing the light, filtering the light, so that we are not nullified out of existence, that we are able to receive the light, the energy in a measured way, so measured to our capabilities. That is the Gevura. That's what we explained. This is the Shemesh and the Magen, the sun and the shield. So the shield shields the light of the sun. It should become measured in a way that we can take it and not being nullified. Okay, that's what the Alter Rebbe explained. The problem is that what the Alter Rebbe is now coming to explain is when we're talking about Hashem, the force of giving, of the chesed, and then the force of restriction. So what is what role does the restrictive force play? Seemingly, the restrictive force is just like when we give an example, a curtain blocks the light, reduces the intensity of the light. So that you would think that if this is the role, meaning a negative role, does not have, if the restrictive force does not have an active role in shaping the light, it's just reducing the light. That is the tzimtzum. The question then is, where does the multiplicity of creations come from? Hashem, we said, Hashem is one. Shaar, Yichud, the gate of oneness of Hashem. Hashem is beyond divisions. So where does the multiplicity of different energies fitting to each and every part, to each and every creation, where does this come from? And Alter Rebbe is going to explain that it is not that he explains that the idea of the tzimtzum, the restrictive force, is not what we think. The restrictive force is not just a force that blocks the sun, that blocks the light, that reduces the light, but really the restrictive force does have a role, and it is also an active force. And this is where the Alter Rebbe introduces the term of orot and kelim, the light and the vessels. Because when you have the vessels, what does it mean the vessel? The light is the light that comes from the chesed, the light, the plain, indivisible, essential light that comes from Hashem, the energy that is not divided. This light goes into kelim, to vessels. When we're saying goes into a vessel, so what does a vessel do? The vessel not only reduces and constrains the flow, the energy, the vessel also gives a shape. It gives a character to the light. An example that is used in the Kabbalah books is when you have plain water, clear water. You're going to put clear water in a cup, a glass cup, a colored glass cup. What happens to the water now? The water receives a color to the person who sees the water. When you see the water outside of the cup, what do you see? If it's a red cup, you see red water. If it's a blue cup, you receive blue water. Does the water really change? The water really doesn't change. But for the person who perceives it, it's really changing. And if you have a reflection of that water on the wall, you're going to see a red light, or blue light. Or think for that same matter, think of a traffic light. You see sometimes the city workers fixing the light. They open up the red, yellow, and green. Behind it, there is a light that is white, same color. But once you put the color glass, you perceive this as a different color. And one color will tell you to stop, and another color will tell you to go. And your life depends on it. You trust your life with these colors. So the idea here is also, this is what Alter Rebbe is explaining. He's going to explain in the end of this chapter and the next chapter, the idea that there is the kelim that shape the light, but yet it is only from our perspective, for the people who perceive this color, this light, but really the light itself does not change. So from Hashem perspective, everything is plain, everything is simple, it's indivisible. But the Kelim are able to change, to do it that from our perspective, it should be seen as different shape and different colors and different characters. And that's how you have the multiplicity of different creations. So that's the basic answer, that although God is simple and indivisible, yet there's a multiplicity in creation. But then you have to dig a little deeper also and say that, although we explained this, but wait a second, but how does this power of Gevura, if Gevura, the restrictive power, the vessel, so to speak, if this is on a lower level, then the chesed is the giving, Gevura is on a lower level, comes to restrictive, to do the restrictive effect. So how does it have the ability to change something which is higher than it? So for this, the Alter Rebbe will explain that really in the roots of these powers, the power of restrictive powers, it comes in a very high level, similar to where Chesed comes from. This is in Kabbalistic terms. So let's see inside what the Alter Rebbe says. Okay, says the Alter Rebbe, v'hinei bechinas hatzimtzum v'hester achayus nikra b'shem kelim. The tzimtzum and concealing of the life force is called in Kabbalistic terminology kelim, vessels. V'achayus atzmoi nikra b'shem oyer. The life force itself is called light, which signifies revelation. And he explains, Shekemoy shakli mechase al mashe betoichoi, kach bechinas hatzimtzum mechase u'master. Oyer ve'achayus hashefeya. He says, for just as the vessels covers that which is within it, so does the tzimtzum cover and conceal the light and the life force that flows into created beings. And this tzimtzum makes it impossible for them to perceive the godliness that is vested within them. So that's what he says, that the vessel, the tzimtzum, it covers and conceals the light. The kelim, the kelim, the vessels, they are verily the letters of the 10 divine utterances, or the substitutions and transpositions, etc., which are the life force of created beings. That we explained in length in chapter 1 of Shaar, Yichud, vEmuna, about the different ways that the letters are arranged, the different ways that you can manipulate the letters, and they are the roots of the energy that each and every creature is able to receive its life force, its vitality from Hashem through the letters. And now says the Alter Rebbe, the letters also have the 5 dividing aspects. You have the 5 organs of speech that enable to utter the different letters. You have the different letters, you need different organs that bring out the sounds in different ways. And they are rooted in 5 letters that represents those 5 organs. Says Alter Rebbe, sheshoroshan ein ei oisiyos mantzpach mem nun tzadik pei chaf. And all these letters, they are rooted in these 5 letters. It is explained in Kabbalah that these are the source of all letters. These letters have, these 5 letters, they have a regular letter and a final letter. Like the mem is a regular mem and final mem. So too with the all other 4. So it says, Shehein hei gvurais, amechalkais, umafridais, ahevel ve'akoil behei meitzois apeh, leisabes chov beis oisios. Since they represent the 5 degrees of gevura, meaning the 5 restraining forces that divide and separate the breath and voice in the 5 organs of speech, thus enabling the 22 letters to be formed. So this is the gvura. The gvura is the restrictive force, but the restrictive force also then give the shape. Just like we said, the vessels, they give the shape to the light. If it's red, if it's blue, so whatever shape it comes, shape and form, and obviously we're talking in general terms also with the rest of the creation, that the different shape of each creature receives is based on the vessels that shapes it to that way. So just as 5 physical organs of speech divide sounds and letters into 5 separate categories, so too do the 5 spiritual levels of Gevura. They give rise to the 22 supernal letters. And these 22 supernal letters, with the combination and transposition and exchanging of the different letters, they are the root of all creation. Now the Alter Rebbe says, talking about the question we asked earlier, how can such a thing of the restrictive power have power over the great godly light to restrict it and contain it? And the answer is because the root of the Gevura is in a very, very high place above the ordinary energy that comes down in a revealed manner. So he says, V'sheira shahei gevuros, the source of the 5 level of Gevura, hu butzina de kardonisa. This is termed in Kabbalah butzina de karbonisa. Butzina in Aramaic means a candle. Kardonisa means darkness. The candle of darkness. A light from darkness. Darkness being a level of concealment that transcends light. You have sometimes darkness because there's absence of light. And you have a darkness which transcends light. They say, for example, by a blind person, in the Mishnah they call a blind person Saginahor. Saginahor in Aramaic means a lot of light. Why do they call him a lot of light? It's not it's not a sarcastic remark, but the Kabbalah Hasidus explains that a blind person may not have, maybe the reason why he cannot see is because his power of sight is so powerful that he doesn't see. His eyes are not vessels enough to carry that powerful energy of sight that he has. So therefore we call him lots of light, which is true. I mean, just like when you take a very powerful light and you shine it in your eyes, you're going to go black. You're not going to see anything. The power of light, when it's so powerful, it is darkness. And that is, says, that the Alter Rebbe explained, this is the source of the Gevura. It's called the Butzina de Kardonisa, the candle of darkness, which means it comes from a much, much higher place. Shehi Gevura ilo de Atik Yomin. This is the supernal Gevura of Atik Yomin, the spiritual level of Keter, the crown that transcends all worlds, including Atzilus. It is above and beyond even the world of Atzilus that we explain many times. This is the highest of the four spiritual worlds. And this root of the Gvura is even higher than that. It's a place called Atik Yomin, the Keter, the crown. And v'sheirash hachasadim hu gam ken chesed Atik Yomin, and correspondingly, the source of the various levels of divine kindness is chesed of Atik Yomin, kayedua liyedechein, as is known to the students of Kabbalah. So again, this is giving us a little touch, a little taste of what it means. The idea of the tzimtzum, how the restrictive force of Hashem is able to not only block the light, but also shape the light. And why is that? Because that itself is rooted in a much, much higher level of Hashem, that is able to give the ability of restricting the light from our perspective, and yet that same light remains indivisible and beyond definition, beyond anything. That's still the oneness, the one Hashem. And our job is to bring the oneness of Hashem and reveal the oneness of Hashem in the creation, in the physical creation. And how is that done? When we do a mitzvah, we'll take a physical object like tefillin and you wrap it on your arm and on your head. You thereby reveal the godliness within it. Whether you see it or not doesn't make a difference. You may still see just a plain leather box, but those who have the real eyes, and ultimately we all are going to be able to see, we're going to see Kedusha, we're going to see holiness in it. Like the story with the guy in Russia, he stole tefillin, and the police caught him up, They found tefillin with him. You see those, with the leather straps and everything. And they told him, you stole this. He said, no, I didn't steal it. So what is this? So he says, oh, I'm a shoemaker myself. So he looked at the tefillin and he saw leather for shoes. Lahavdil. So obviously that the world doesn't see, but we know that we have the koyach of the Eibusha to bring the Kedusha, the holiness into this world. Through ultimately that will be revealed with the coming of Mashiach very soon. Thank you for joining. We'll see you tomorrow morning with the continuation of chapter 5. Any questions?